Cells need to be the correct shape and have the correct form to perform the correct function. And so they must also be made with correctly shaped macromolecules. Macromolecules, like carbohydrates, need to be the correct shape if they are to operate as receptors. Cells need receptors. So maybe this would be the carbohydrate receptor. Carbohydrates are usually food for a cell, but we can also use them for receptors. A receptor is like an address for a cell. The body sometimes needs to send the cell packages. We call these packages vesicles. Vesicles are like cells, made of the same material, but they are dragged into the cell. They fuse with the cell and deliver their goods. The way that the body knows where to send cells is by their receptor address. So the carbohydrate must be in the correct form. There are examples that we find in nature of carbohydrate receptors being the wrong form and therefore not operating correctly. This can happen and induce immune response to people who get sick. Lipids must also be in the correct form to create hormones. There can be problems with this when a hormone has the incorrect shape. It can cause problems. So for example, in our diet, or in our beauty regimen, sometimes we use products that have aromatic rings, which basically means carbon in a ring. And this has been known to be similar to hormones. It can cause ill effects to our bodies. So they must also be in the right shape. Proteins, as I've already discussed, must be in the correct shape. When they are not in the correct shape, they cannot perform the correct function. Diseases that might be caused of this are cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia. Another example of things that must be in the right shape and form are nucleic acids. When DNA mutates, it might lose a piece. Because of this, that DNA will be misread and create a cascade of problems that end up with an incorrectly shaped protein. When nucleic acids are not shaped correctly, they tend to create incorrectly shaped proteins, and this can lead to disease. Proteins have a very particular form and therefore function. And here is an example of amino acids coming together to make a protein. This is a realistic representation of that. I'll play the video. You can see each of these tiny little dots. Those are amino acids. They are interacting with each other to create a three-dimensional and moving object called a protein. This protein quite often has a job to do, and if it is not the correct form, it cannot perform its correct function. You can see by this model that proteins are extremely dynamic and extremely complex in their form.